the anxiety of speed. High in the mountains, where paths turn into trails and clocks seem to stop, lived an old master named Daisetsu. The days passed slowly among the steam of tea and the song of cicadas. Yet, that summer, something disturbed the stillness of the temple. A young stranger arrived, out of breath, his eyes overflowing with haste. "Master Daisetsu," he said without greeting, "I have come to learn the way to peace, but I need to do it fast. I don't have time to waste." The master, stirring the fire beneath the kettle, barely lifted his gaze. "What makes you think?" he asked gently. "That peace is found where hurry leads you." The young man didn't know how to answer. He looked down at his dusty feet, his backpack full of books and watches. "Everything in the world moves fast," he finally said. "If I don't hurry, I'll be left behind." Daisetsu blew the steam from his tea as if to divert a storm, and with a serene smile, pointed to the ground beside him. "Sit down. The first step toward peace is to stop running." The young man sat down awkwardly, as if even resting was a race. His knees couldn't stay still, and his eyes darted from one thing to another. The teapot, the bowl, the wind moving the bamboo curtains. "When does the teaching begin?" he asked anxiously. "Should I meditate? Fast? Is there a mantra?" Daisetsu poured him a bowl of tea and gently pushed it toward him. "It begins when you drink without thinking about what comes next." The young man took the bowl with both hands, but before bringing it to his lips, he asked, "How long does it take for this to work?" The master said nothing. He drank from his bowl in silence, as if the world had no other urgency than that very moment. Unintentionally, the young man imitated the gesture. The tea was hot, simple, and for a moment his mind was still. After that first sip, something imperceptible shifted in his breathing. Daisetsu watched quietly. In the mountains, true teaching begins when you stop rushing it. That night, the young man slept in a small wooden cell, where the only sound was the restlessness within himself. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind raced. To-do lists, decisions left undone, roads yet to travel. Though his body lay still, inside he was running invisible marathons. At dawn, he stepped into the courtyard. Daisetsu was already sweeping the garden leaves, as if every movement was a quiet conversation with the wind. "Master," the young man said in a low voice, "I can't stop thinking. It's like everything inside me moves at high speed, even when my body is still." Daisetsu nodded gently without stopping his sweeping. Many believe calm means stopping the world, but it's not about holding back the river. It's about stopping the fight against its current. The young man frowned, still unsure. "So what should I do?" The master picked up a dry leaf with his rake, watched it slowly fall, and said, "Watch. Don't rush to change. Just observe your inner speed, like someone watching a cloud drift by." That day, Daisetsu gave no lessons and spoke only when necessary. He simply walked the temple paths, gathering withered flowers, feeding the birds, and listening to the crunch of earth beneath his feet. The young man tried to imitate him, but every gesture felt incomplete unless it led somewhere. He bent down to pick up a leaf and wondered, "What's the point of this?" He took a few steps and asked himself, "What should I be learning now?" Anxiety was like a shadow pushing him from behind. At dusk, Daisetsu offered rice and pickles. They ate in silence. "I can't stand this emptiness," the young man suddenly said. "I feel useless if I'm not moving forward toward something." The master set his chopsticks down. "What if life isn't a race? What if the present moment isn't an obstacle, but the very destination?" The young man lowered his gaze. For the first time, he said nothing. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was like a puddle where the first drops of understanding fall. The next morning, the master took the young man to the mountainside where an old plum tree grew. "This tree," Daisetsu said, "blooms every spring, but there's no way to force it to bloom sooner. You can shout at it, beg it, even surround it with warm lamps, and still, it will bloom only when its time comes." The young man looked at the bare branches, and for a moment, he felt the tree was a mirror of himself. "But what if it never blooms?" he asked in a quiet voice. Daisetsu smiled. "The plum tree doesn't ask that question. Simply is here, feeling the sun, the wind, the rain, and in that it is already living fully." The young man remained silent. For the first time, he didn't feel pressured to understand everything right away. He didn't need to take notes or capture every word. He just was. And as he watched the still tree, something inside him began to slow its race. Not out of obligation, but like a river that, upon finding a lake, expands and becomes still. As the days passed, the young man began to change without even noticing. He no longer woke up startled or counted the minutes between one task and the next. He started to notice the creak of wood beneath his feet, the scent of rice boiling, the distant song of crickets. One evening, while sweeping dry leaves in front of the temple, he realized he wasn't thinking about anything. Not his future, not his spiritual progress, not even his anxiety. He was simply present. Daisetsu came close and watched silently. Then, as if sharing a secret whispered to the world, he murmured, "You've stopped running. And because of that, you've begun to walk." The young man looked up. He hadn't achieved anything grand or reached a visible goal. But inside his chest, the air was deeper, and his heart no longer beat like a war drum. He understood then that speed had only been a disguise for fear, and by standing still, he had truly begun to hear himself. One morning, while gathering water from the spring, the young man asked, "Master, what if the world keeps running and I can't keep up anymore?" Daisetsu paused, watching the water slip through his fingers. "Then you'll know you weren't born to run alongside the world, but to be awake within it." The young man nodded slowly. He no longer sought quick answers. He understood that every word from the master was a seed, some taking whole seasons to bloom. That afternoon, while sweeping the garden, he was surprised to discover something new. His anxiety was no longer a monster. It still appeared, yes, sometimes as impatience or doubt, but now he could watch it like a passing cloud. He had learned not to move on impulse, but with awareness, not to react, but to respond. And above all, he had realized that true change doesn't come from speeding up, but from stopping the soul and listening to what was always there. After a cycle of moons, the young man said goodbye to the master. "Thank you for teaching me to stop," he said, bowing deeply. "I thought I came seeking answers, but what I found was silence." Daisetsu looked at him with tenderness. "Silence is not absence," he replied. "It's space, and in that space, everything you are has room to bloom." The young man descended the mountain without hurry, feeling each step as a heartbeat of the earth. The wind gently brushed his face without rushing him. He no longer felt the need to get anywhere fast. He understood that peace wasn't at the end of the path, but in the way you walk it. And so, among slow-moving clouds and leaves falling in their own time, he became one more of those who know the world isn't changed by running, but by stopping, breathing, and simply being.